Angela Pichardo is a psychic medium who joined my medium circle on Meetup a couple of years ago. And I've had the chance to watch her work many times and to witness her incredibly gentle connection with spirit. And she has shared on numerous occasions that some of the people in her life have expressed judgment toward her due to her beliefs and due to her work with spirit and as a medium. And there are a number of reasons why that judgment exists. Some of them are of Christian backgrounds, and so they have some beliefs about mediums, and some just don't understand. And so I wanted to have a conversation with her because I don't think that's an unusual struggle. And I thought it would be helpful for others to hear her experience and hopefully gain inspiration. It's a really educational conversation, and I hope you enjoy. Hi, Angela.
Hey,
Thank you so much
how are
for
you?
good. Good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. So excited to be here.
Me too. I'm so excited you're here as well. Um, we decided to sit down today because we've had numerous discussions about the idea of having people who are close to you in your life not believe you about your spiritual beliefs or about your spiritual systems and have judgments about those systems. You are a psychic medium who I met through the circle that we both are members of, and we meet every week and practice with spirit, and repeatedly you've mentioned that that's something that you struggle with, that you wish that the people close to you were more open to what you believe in, or at least didn't have judgment about it. So I'd love to talk about that because I don't think you're the only one who experiences that. I think it's a pretty common thing. I'm fortunate because most of the people in my life, they might not share the same beliefs, but they're pretty much like, you do what you do, and that's you. And but I think when we get into situations where people are deeply religious, that's when the judgments start to come out. And that's
Yeah.
something I think a lot of people contend with. And I think it's an interesting conversation. But before we get into it, why don't you share um, your your origin story, if you will, how you came to understand your own connection to spirit and what that entailed, and just the whole background of that.
My native country is Dominican Republic, and my mom tells me that since I was a little girl, I had a dream, and I would dream about like my neighbors. I would dream about like numbers and stuff like that. In DR, they love to like play lottos and stuff like that. And people will come to me actually like to ask me what numbers would I like that day, because they will play it and they will like get money for it. So my mom
Whoa.
like she was very upset because she kept thinking like, oh, they always get money and they never come and give some to you. So she was like, don't talk to anybody. You will not talk to anybody. So the neighbors will call me and ask me, but my mom was like, no. But pretty much like that was like when I was, I would say like maybe 4 or 5 years old. Like I was very young, and I think I just like share whatever like dreams I had. But when I grew up, like my family in DR, especially uh, through my father's side, they are psychic mediums. They use trance and stuff like that, but I never was really connected to that. I came here when I was 17 years old, and I really didn't know anything about it. Um, my other side of the family, my mom's um, side, they very religious. They go to church every Sunday. They pretty much like know the Bible, and that was the things that my mom like try to show me. And from my mom's side, like everybody would talk to me about those things. Um, and I, in a way, was religious. Like I would go to church and stuff like that. But I was not really um, connected to anything. Like I feel like I felt pretty normal, like at that time. I believe it was not until like something big really happened in my life that I started like to have all these experiences. So my father had a stroke in DR
Mm,
and he was really sick.
mhm,
And I thought that I was gonna lose him, so I had to travel to see him there. And all the way, like from New York City to DR, I just keep asking me the same question, like, what about if he dies? What I'm gonna do if he dies? Because my father is everything for me. Like he's he's great, and he has protected me so much, and I'm completely grateful. So I keep asking that question. And then like there was one question that I asked myself, and I was like, I wonder, like, if he dies, will he be okay? Will he be um content, I guess, with the life that he had? And all of a sudden, like I asked that question to myself. Like I was like, okay, like if you die, will you be like happy? And the answer was no. So I kept thinking about it. I kept thinking like, but why I'm not happy? Like why I'm not connecting? Why, it feels so weird. And that connection with kind of like he dying and the experiences that you have in life like really shocked me. So I went to the art. Thank God that he was, he was okay. Like he spent like at least like 2 weeks um, in a clinic there. Then he was able to travel, and he spent, I would say, like 3 months in a hospital here because he was very sick. And all that time, I felt like my whole world was collapsing. Like I couldn't understand like what was happening, and all of a sudden, I started to have this feeling of being open, and I didn't really know to what. I would sit in the hospital like seeing him, and all of a sudden like people would pass by, and I would have like flashes of things that were happening, and I didn't know like if it was me or if it was somebody else. Like I started to get anxious. I started to kind of like feeling things. Like it was so many emotions, and I didn't understand what was happening, to the point that I have to actually go to therapy because I thought that I was having like panic attacks. I thought that I was having, anxiety attacks, all the stuff. And all of a sudden, like I started to have these like dreams, like a lot of like dreams, um, foreseeing dreams, like dreams about the future, dreams about things that were happening. Um, and little by little, I start connecting with those feelings. I'll all of a sudden like feel something, and then somebody around me would say that they were feeling the same thing. So I kind of was starting to understand that those feelings were not just me, that it was like other people around me as well. And I started wondering why. I started like what is this? Like is this like something that is because I'm empathetic, or it's something bigger? um, I started to go to places that they were more in touch, like with energy and stuff like that. I actually started with Reiki, um, just to relax myself and like calm down. And um, I feel like that's when like everything opened up for me, like feeling the energy, understanding that all other people like actually felt like that. um, People talking to me about their experience with dreams, with energy of others, because I thought that it was just like me having anxiety.
mhm, mhm,
And I started reading, I started talking like to others, and I kind of like found out that no, like this was more like spiritual. I connected more to my family from my father's side. They more spiritual, and they started talking to me about what that meant, the history of our family. um, and eventually, like I started to meet more people that were more uh, into that.
Hmm.
And of course, like there was like a breeze of fresh air. Like I felt like, wow, like I'm not crazy.
Hmm. I bet.
But then like there's other things then that happened, and it's not always uh just love and light like people
No,
say.
no, no, of course not.
There's like a lot of other things that come with that, and yeah.
What was your family history? Do you mind sharing that? What did they tell you?
um from my mom's side.
When your dad and his family started sharing with you your spiritual history?
Yes. So my great grandma was a medicine woman. She did trans mediumship, and she knew a lot about herbalism and plants. And I believe I did not know her. I think she did a lot of in the community that she lived. Um, and she passed those things also to my grandmother. My grandmother was not too much into herbalism, but she was also a trance medium. Um, my aunt is a trance medium as well, and she also read cards. So she's also pretty much in the spiritual practice. However, in DR, like they practice what is called Dominican Voodoo. So it is not what kind of like you see here. Like it's different.
How is it different?
And so they believe in something that is called the 21 divisions, and there's a lot of deities there. They actually work with deities, and there's a lot of divisions of them. There's a lot of things that go into place for you to practice that. You have to kind of be called into it. You cannot just go.
Hmm.
You have to wait until you kind of like invited by your actual deity. It's not something that you can decide by yourself. There's a lot of people that do that, um, but it's certain risk that you take when you don't do things the way that you should do them,
Risks
as
as
in a
in,
spiritual risk.
yeah. So
Yeah,
like
yeah.
karma gets shifted, or struggles in life and that sort of thing arise if you don't follow the
Yes,
practice the way. Yeah.
I was kind of like afraid of all that.
Hmm.
I think it's a huge compromise, like for you to go into that, because there's certain steps, there's some certain way of life that you should go by in order for you to do these things. And after that, there's a whole um, process, like to you actually learning how they work, and somebody has to prepare you for that, and that person is also choose by your dating. So
Okay.
it's, yeah, it's a, it's a little complex. And I was not, sure that I was ready for that big um commitment.
Yeah.
Because it is a commitment.
Yeah.
um but here, like with the Reiki and the psychic mediumship, I feel like a little bit more at ease. I feel like I can go into that and not feel like I'm doing something wrong, or like I have to wait for something, to tell me that it's okay. It's pretty much like very connected to spirit and to the person um that you're doing at that specific time, the person that you're working with. Uh, so I have been studying, my origins and how this work, and I think that have made me feel a little bit more at ease
Hmm.
about those practices and how to go about it. And also not to feel pressure like anymore. If whatever is gonna happen is gonna happen, so I feel like way more comfortable now with that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it sounds like the evolution of all of these processes, uh, it shifts as generations move on. So it may well be that those processes were required for your grandmother, your great grandmother, your aunt, but it may also be that you are in a different place energetically than they were, so that you can practice the way they practice and use their tools in a way that is smoother for you. And maybe that's promoting the idea that, like laziness is okay and all that. But I don't think so. I think that it's just things evolve as we move on. And so maybe you found your connection to spirit to be strong enough at this point to be able to know that you are protected from any of those types of energies that could step in while you practice with that protocol, with that uh way of that belief system um of your ancestors, but to do it in a way that's easy for you, because it seems like it's part of your bloodline. So it's like it seems almost necessary for you to pursue it, right?
It does feel like that. Once I was connected more to them and knew about those things, yes, like it scared me a little bit, but it also made me feel like more like myself. Like it make me feel like something click. Like I
Yeah.
know now, you know, the story like of why I feel this way and why I'm so attracted to plants, to herbalism, to all these things. Like it's just very natural to me,
Hmm.
and it did like make me feel more focused on like what to do and what kind of like not to do. Yeah.
And I'm probably semi wrong about this, but I bet you a lot of the procedure required is really more to keep people who don't know to treat it as a sacred practice and to take it very, very seriously, to keep them from just diving in without absolute understanding of what they're opening themselves up to. And that's not to say that what they're opening themselves up to is this, terrible thing, just that there's a responsibility in opening
Yes.
yourself to spirit and sharing with others, right? And so it's like, hermetic practices, or the I forget exactly what it's called, but it's like the ancient, it was like a 2,000 year practice where everybody would take this pilgrimage to a place and drink this special potion that was kind of like our ayahuasca, and then have a night of just revelation in which you could only do it once. And can't think of the word right now, but it's expecting the purity required for that. It sounds like the same thing. Like if you did that, you couldn't be a murderer. This thing that I'm talking about. If you were a murderer, if you'd ever killed anyone, you weren't allowed to participate.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and so it's the same idea. It sounds like just the requirement of purity of intention is more important than anything else.
Yes. Yes. I think they also want you to know that this is something like very serious, and they want you to train for it with a person that went through that also process, so they can show you how to do these things.
Hmm.
And they very guarded about it. If you don't have a person that is close to you, none of them will tell you how to do X, Y, and Z. Like it's very um cover. You actually have to know somebody close to you in order for them to help you.
Hmm.
Unless this person it's um kind of advised like by the deity that it's okay for them to help you or to take you as like their god son, goddaughter. That's
Hmm.
how kind of like it goes. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, but
Um,
it is like just protecting like the purity, the commitment, like that you are right for that. Yeah, and that you take it seriously.
yeah, it's the secret secret teachings of the ages. It's like it seems to be a requirement of all spiritual practices up until this point to have this level of secrecy to it. But I think
Yeah.
that's shifting. I think that there, like for instance, the Kabbalah, that was something that
Mhm.
was hidden from regular people until I think the 60s, 40s to 60s is when the Kabbalah began to be sort of opened up. The study of it and the practice of it began to open up. And then, of course, now it's known. It's not necessarily accessible. The Zoltar, which is the book that the Kabbalah is based on, is very, very dense, and most people, when they read it, have absolutely no idea what they're reading. But it's more the teaching of it is when it's revealed to you. And some people, I think, have the spiritual consciousness to be able to read it and understand it. But that was secret until very, very recently. And like I mentioned before, and I think you're familiar, the Hermetic practices and um, so, but I think now we're ready. The human race is ready to open to all of these practices in a way that we weren't before. I think because of access to information and a willingness to be open. I mean, even 20, 25 years ago, you probably know, as I do, we're about the same age. These conversations and the potential to even join a circle without the internet, but also just in community. There weren't circles, there were seances, right? And those seances were
Yeah.
reserved for mediums who were born with a special gift that no one else had, supposedly. And so
Yeah.
it 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 just wasn't an open practice. And now that has changed entirely. And people are beginning to understand that it's not a special, it is a special gift, but it's not a gift given to only certain individuals, and other people have to use those individuals to be go-betweens. There's still a belief in that. People come to mediums. I give readings to people, but I tell everyone, you can do this yourself. You don't need a medium. You can contact your mother on your own. You don't need me. And it's true.
Yes.
Um, but it sounds also in your sharing, just to go back to your origin story, if you will, it sounds like what I've thought and discovered along the way more and more is that the trauma of the experience of almost losing your father is what opened you. And that just seems to be a very common theme for people who are connected to spirit very deeply, that major trauma opens us. And it feels like our pathways, our energetic pathways are opened by suffering. And that if you're able to process the suffering in a healthy way, in a loving, forgiving way, you're open suddenly to these energies in a way that you weren't before. It's just incredible. And it just kind of, I think it explains why we suffer. It
Yeah.
gives a reason for the suffering, because a lot of people are like, why, if there's a God, why do we suffer so much? And it's like, well, I can understand that for certain things, but in terms of pain and personal suffering, it just seems like that might partially be why, because it opens us to what's really there, the processing of it. So you began to meet people in spiritual circles, you began to read, you began to do research. And then when was it that you began to encounter at first the judgment from the religious side of your family?
So, like I said, like my mother's side is very religious. My mom, I think she's a little bit more understanding. I think she's more open-minded.
Mhm.
But my cousins, my aunts, all of them they are religious. Some of them are, like already dead. Um, but even like people that don't know me that well, just like acquaintances and friends, they will ask, like, why do you believe in that? I saw you in church, and you know what the Bible says. Like, why will you?
What was it that let them, how did they find out about your beliefs? Did you tell them?
So I was kind of having panic attacks left and right, everywhere. And the way that I kind of like deal with that was going outside and kind of like trying to come down. And people will go outside and ask me like, what's happening. So instead of like me saying, oh, I'm just having a panic attack, I knew now what it was. I was just getting overwhelmed because of everybody's energy. And I would say that. And they will look at me
I
like
see.
I was crazy because I refused to keep saying something that I knew that it was not right. I was not having real panic attacks. It was just me being overwhelmed about like all the energies that were around. And I was so open to that. And I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know how to, understand like the information that was coming at me at that moment. I didn't know. Um, so I just walked outside, like breathe and stuff like that until like I can compose myself and come back in. And they will ask, and I will tell them, and some of them were shocked. They were like, "Oh, like I thought that you were, a church goer. I thought that you believe in God." And I'm like, "Yeah, I do believe in God." But then they will say to me, "Well, God, doesn't like, things like that. You know that in the Bible it says that every person that does witchcraft and stuff like that will go to hell." And I started to panic more because I didn't understand. I questioned, like, so then if this is bad, like, why would God let me feel this? Why would I, you know, be open to this if this is bad? Like, if this like a test that I'm trying like to do, like, and I found it so um nerve wracking to know the truth. Like, if this good, if this bad, like, why would people tell me that is good, then others will tell me that it's bad? Like, what is all this about? And it made me question myself. It made me question how I felt. It made me question the information that I was receiving. It made me question my relationships with people. What
Mm-hmm.
does that mean? Like, it means that if I choose this path, then you're not gonna be my friend, you're not gonna be my family member anymore because I just not, like into what you are. And I don't know like if people go to these phases, but of course, like I started like arguing
Mm-hmm.
about religion with anybody.
Mm-hmm.
That was more overwhelming, and it made me so unhappy. And I question like why go into this, why be so open to these other energies when I would it just make me feel like lonely and um shameful and all these things. Like it was just like really hard to understand, you
It's
know.
so it's so sad because I don't know if you've come to this or not, but this is the truth, I think. And I grew up Catholic. I was brought up my whole life as a serious Catholic, weekly church, not just holidays, every week, and Catholic school all the way through. And you know, the problem is that people are indoctrinated into the belief in this Bible. And
Yes.
I'm not trying to say that the Bible doesn't come from channeled information. But the fact of the matter is that the Bible was very badly edited by the people in power back in the early days after, especially with the New Testament, but also the Old Testament as well. It was written by men who
Yes.
manipulated facts and information to be able to suit their own needs. Now, does that mean that some of it isn't coming from a true spiritual place? No, I mean, it's one of the most powerful books in the history of humanity, right? So there's something about that book that has meaning and value, and it's not just written by men, that's for sure. But men took the facts and twisted them. And one of those facts, I think, is the idea that mediums and mediumship is witchcraft, and that it's blah, 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 blah. Because that if mediumship is not witchcraft and is not denigrated, then there's no longer a need for middlemen, namely priests. And I can't remember when, I don't know if it's the Old Testament or the New Testament that the mediumship statement is made. Do you know? Do you remember?
I think it's the New
It
Testament.
is the
I
New
believe
Testament.
so.
It makes
Yeah.
all the sense in the world then that they would want to make it so that no, you can't
Hmm.
have your own connection to God. If you do, you're a witch. You need to use us. You need to use the priests to get to God. And then the money goes to the church, and then people rely on the church. The masses are controlled. And so, we're over that. We're moving past that now. And it's sad that there are people who still think that those words that are bastardized by people from 300 AD are still have value and meaning. It's just, and it's difficult to understand how someone can look at a figure like Yeshua, like Jesus Christ, and see the things that he supposedly did. He's not a witch. He's not a medium. And yet, today, if you do the same things as him, or even 1/1 millionth of what he did, you're a witch or you're doing something bad. It's just hypocrisy. And it's sad, and it must be maddening. But I hope that you've gotten to a place where you're less self-judgmental about it. Have you, or are you still struggling with that fear that you're...
Um, to tell you the truth, yes, I struggle a little bit. I don't think that is like before, because every time that I meet with spiritual people in your group as well, like I just feel so welcome. I feel that what we're doing is so beautiful. So I think that that's a sign like that there's nothing wrong about it, but because I do feel happy, I feel fulfilled. Like when I go to those places and talk to about spiritism or um energy healing, anything like that, like it makes me feel happy. um from time to time, in my family, like they still like go to church, they still talk about the Bible and stuff like that. So in some instances, they would like throw like little things here and there, that will make me like a little like crazy. But now like I more um into kind of like my own self. So I don't feel the need to argue anymore. I don't feel the need to explain myself. It'll it would be better if nobody have to like judge nobody, but it's still there. So, I think like the more time I experience my spirituality, it makes me feel better. It makes me feel more comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's really all the same thing. The thing that they're doing is the thing that we're doing. It's all one, right? So why there has to be a division between the people who go to church and people like us who might not go to church, but who also practice spirituality. There's really no difference. And I think it goes both ways. The judgment coming from them and then the judgment coming from us. A lot of people are very judgmental of Christianity. And
Yes. Yeah.
I'm not. I mean, look, I wear a cross every day of my life, and it's not
Mhm.
because I'm not Catholic anymore. I'm not Christian. The reason I say I'm not Christian is because I think Christianity was bastardized after the Romans decided to take it seriously, because Constantine, I think it was, took over and began to believe in Christianity and turned it into a Roman thing and started to tell
Yeah.
all the lies about it. So I don't call myself a Christian because I don't believe that it was what it was meant to be when it first started with Jesus, right? But I do
Yeah.
believe in the tenets that Jesus taught. And I think Jesus is, it for me, one of my personal ascended masters, who teaches me how to be a better person and how to, turn the other cheek and forgive and love. So I believe in the basic tenets of Christianity, and I don't judge that. What I judge, of course, is the misuse of the information, which is just ingrained into the religion and has been from the beginning of time. And look, I have priests who are good friends of my family, who are spiritual people, good people, who are very, in their 80s, have been priests all their lives, are, powerful people in my history, like family members to me. So it's not a judgment against all priests or all Christian people or anything like that. It's just a judgment against the institution. I think it's a mistaken institution, and people fall into the indoctrination that institution has leaked since the beginning of since its inception. Um, but
I also feel like sometimes, like not from all people, but I think that uh, a lot of religious people question like all these things because also they feel that they better they feel that the way that they see Jesus and God and stuff like that, they feel that they are kind of like above you, and they kind of feel like they need to save you. But it feels like it comes like from a personal like thing. It's not really, like I love you so much that I want you to experience this. Um, so I find that also that it kinds of like they have this mentality where they feel better than you because they believe in what is true, and they talk a lot about being right. This is the right thing, this is what God wants, and this is why God is right, and all that. Like it like I noticed that a lot, and that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of the people that I'm a little bit afraid, because it makes me feel that they truly believe that they have the truth of everything, and they know this, and there's no other way around. There's
Mm-hmm.
no way that they wrong. There's no way that nothing is wrong. So you have to kind of either believe in this, or like the bad person, you are on the other side,
Mm-hmm.
so that makes me feel like a little like nervous. um because then how you express yourself, like how you let people know in what you believe, and feel accepted and feel that you're a good person, when you being good is tied to something that, if you look around the world, like not everybody has the same religion, and that's something that it's just so hard for me. um that a group of people think that they own the truth,
Mm-hmm.
when there's like a lot of religions that came way before Christianity, and
Yeah.
it's just, to me, like I just
And
don't know how to.
Christianity, so a lot of people believe, and I don't. I think Jesus was a real person.
Hmm.
The power, and actually, even if he wasn't, I don't think it really matters, because of the power of his teaching has made him real. So actually, it doesn't really matter if he's real or not.
I
But
believe that too.
yeah, but a lot of people think or feel or believe or whatever that it's actually none of it is true, and that Christianity is rooted in these older religions like Zoroastrianism, which
Hmm.
is has a very similar origin story to Jesus and the Virgin Mary and all that. It's very, very similar. And then of course you've got other Greek mythologies and Roman mythologies that go along with those stories as well. But like, aside, putting all that aside, I just can't take I can't take seriously a group of people who call God he. I
Oh
just,
yeah, yeah.
like, I just don't understand it. It's like, how do you think that this being, this energy, this whatever it is, not even a being, right? It's the all that is. How
It's
does
all
that
that is.
have a gender? There may
Yeah.
be a divine masculine and divine feminine to that entity that then creates the offspring that we are. But to say that he, God, he, I can't even. How can you keep, especially women, how can you move
Yeah.
forward? It's so exclusionary. Um, so that, to me, that's maybe next time you start to be concerned or feel judged, just say to yourself, well, they call God he. So,
Yep.
what else is there to
Yeah.
say? They got a
Yes.
lot of
Yes.
lifetimes to roll through. you know?
Yes. Yes. I completely believe in that. I find the universe and all these things that happen with energy like so big, like to just tie it into one little religion, like one book, one thing, what, like it's just so many things happening that it's almost impossible for me to think that you know there's more that we don't know. There's so much more that we cannot even imagine. So I think that is what make me kind of like go through day by day, like understanding that even if they were right, I think that in time we will see like more things. Like I don't want to prove anybody wrong anymore. I just want to, I don't know, like be happy and explore like the world, like the spiritual world, the cultures, religions, like everything. For me, like that's fascinating. And I am done, you know, trying kind of like to prove people wrong about it.
Absolutely. I mean, it's not, it's just not helpful to
Yeah.
you to try and convince anybody of anything. You can't convince people to, people are on their own path and their own journey, and there's no reason to try and convince them otherwise. And there's also no reason to feel like you have to jump on board with what they
Yeah.
believe either. It's unfortunate
Yeah.
that they can't return that. And it is hard because I think that in time, I think probably in a couple hundred years, it's already happening. And I think in a couple hundred years, people are going to be more like you and me and others like us, just a little bit less tied to a certain theology or a certain institution or a certain um, uh, doctrine that was passed down among the ages that is sexist and racist and all of these things that make no sense, you know, to love and compassion and forgiveness. I think more people are going to begin to open their frame of reference and eventually come to the point where they're just they just are in awe of what is, not needing to have a framework for it there, you know, and that's what religion is. It's a framework for the inexplicable. And I understand wanting that, but it seems to also create a framework that keeps others out. It's like a
Yeah.
framework of, you know, that we surround ourselves with, like a borderland of belief that keeps others out. And that's not what is taught, supposedly, you know? So that's not what the teachings are. Jesus didn't teach to keep others out. Jesus spent the most time with the people that today are kept out, you know,
Yes.
the
Yeah.
shelter, the unsheltered, the the people who are desperate, you know, the sick,
Yes.
the needy. That's who Jesus was with. Jesus wasn't with the rich people in the temple, you know. Jesus wasn't going to the you know, revival tents and giving all, you know, giving money to the leaders there. He was arguing with the leaders of the time. So
Yep.
are you reading what, you know, and then forget about like what actually was probably said, which is in those extant gospels that are not considered real gospels, but like the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Mary Magdalene, gospel, you know, all of those um Dead Sea Scroll gospels that give a lot more interesting information, and who knows what else there is that we haven't even had exposure to. Just the idea that reincarnation was discussed by Jesus apparently, and you know, so just seems like there's picking and choosing of what people believe. So where are you at now with, you said that you still sometimes struggle with being afraid that you're on the wrong side, that you're,
Yeah.
you know, that you're, but where would you say you are now? You've been practicing, at least in our circle, for 2 years now, regularly,
Yeah. Yes.
and probably doing your own other stuff as well. Where
Yep.
do you think you stand now with those beliefs, and like where do you see yourself going with them? Do you see that these judgments holding you back still?
Um, I wouldn't say that they holding me back. I still think about that, and I think in a weird way, it's good because I that helps me kind of like be a better person because I know, you know, like that God exists, and that makes me feel like okay. So I just trying to be the best version of me, and I
Hmm.
think that helps me, you know, like kind of like balance me out. Um, because there are like a lot of other things that you know it's not like that are religious and this is why like they you know like bad or negative. It's more that I'm not going to engage in those things without any judgment. And I think that side of my family, that side of that um being Christian and believing in God and the Bible like keeps me like a little bit in check of like what my values and my morals are. So even though like that has caused like a lot of friction, a lot of like me doubting, it also has helped me like understand more like what my boundaries are. Like
Mm-hmm.
I believe that it has helped me in that way. Um, I feel that it's not holding me back because I still trying to research about my origins. I still practice the things that I want to practice. I'm still like going to circle. When I can, I share like with others, my experiences and how, that those experiences have made me feel and how those experiences actually have like make me grow like personally, and even professionally they have. um and it has been a blessing in my life because I feel more connected.
Mm-hmm.
I feel blessed like with this knowledge, and I barely, like I feel that I know things. Like I think there's so much more like to
Mm-hmm.
study. um One thing that I did like for me to understand better, I was reading a book about the origins of the Dominican Voodoo that kind of like practice, and understood how this came about and why there is Catholicism and Christianism inside this also,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like religion. It's a mixture of so many things.
Mm-hmm.
And why like people in my country before like were so mysterious about it, why not, why they didn't talk about it, why it was kind of like a secret. Nobody wanted like to talk about it, and you have to be invited to these things in order for you to know of it. And it's because actually when Spain went to our country, and like we were kind of like trying to be colonialized like for that, they bring all those things, like the religion. And they kind of like said that whatever religion we were practicing, it was like from the devil. It was bad,
Yep.
and there was a lot of people that were killed and
Yep.
punished because of like practicing something else.
Yep.
And reading all that, like it actually made me feel those two connections, those that comes from my ancestors from Africa, from the Taino people, and also from like Europe as well. Like they there, I can feel it, I can see it. It's just like me trying to kind of like get the best out of everything. i i,
Mm-hmm.
I believe I don't think that um I think there's things wrong and there's things that are right about like everybody. So
Yep.
I think that what it keeps me like feeling more positive. Like this is not has something that is just only good. Everything like it's mixed. This is
It's gray.
life, and this is, yeah. So, and I think that looking back, this is what I had like a lot of like a hard time, because I think I was more of a black and white person.
Uh-huh. Most people are.
And yes, so the experiences that I had, I think like it opened me up to all these colors and being less judgmental and understanding that there's things that I cannot even imagine that people have gone through. Um, Even when I was having like all this like a spiritual awakening and all that stuff, there was a lot of negative things that came in my life.
Of
There was a
course.
lot of negative experiences that I had with people, with negativity and stuff like that, like in my house, in myself. There was like a battle, a real battle that I had to see like and understand like what was happening for me to kind of like understand what was it that I want, what was it that I was looking for.
And
And I had
heal.
to, yes, there was a lot of healing. And um, early on, you said that like it's very common that people like start like their spiritual journey when something kind of like bad happening. It makes you like open like to all these things. And I think for me, I struggle a lot because I couldn't accept that. I couldn't accept that I have to go through so many hard things in order for me to spiritually open and see them, and not in a way like accept them, but understand and just know that that was a lesson for me to grow, that I
Mm-hmm.
don't have to keep those like negative experiences and bad experiences with me, that I was just there like to teach me something, and then I have to kind of release it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really hard for me
It's very
to
hard. It's
to
very,
understand that. Yeah.
and I don't think it's something that you understand as it's happening. I think you understand it in retrospect. You know, I
Yes.
had my own version of that for a long time, just really terrible things happening over and over and over again within a very short period of time, which led to my own, awakening. And
Yes.
and at the time, the suffering was too great to even be able to look at it as anything but suffering.
Yes.
There was no room for I'm growing here. There were a couple of experiences after the initial awakening that also hurt very much, where I was
Yes.
able to see, okay, I'm being healed here. I'm being opened and healed with this experience. And I was able to suffer greatly, but also be aware and offer my pain up to God and ask for help. But in the beginning, when the experiences first exploded everything for me, I couldn't see any of that.
Yes.
It just hurt. Now I
Yes.
look back, and even though a lot of the things are regretful and regrettable, and I wish that they hadn't happened, they did bring me to the place that I needed to go in my own life. So I hear what you're saying about that. Yeah.
I was actually battling that word that you just said. I refuse to believe that all that was like taking me to a place that I will like be happy. I was revealing to that, like, no, I cannot accept that bad things are happening for me to be better. No, this is
I
not
know.
the way it is.
I know, and
So it was really hard.
you read about people saying, well, when that happened to me, I became a totally different person and in a much better place. And it is true. But that doesn't mean that there's not still for me it was a while ago, but I still have, you know, certain feelings about wishing that it hadn't happened. I don't
Yes, from
fully,
time to time, yeah.
yeah, I mean, I wish that I had, you know, not had to go through this in order to get here. And it doesn't always feel great. It
Yes, yes,
still doesn't feel great,
yeah,
to remember some of the hurts and the betrayals and, the rug being pulled and all that stuff. It's like
yeah,
you don't,
yeah.
you never really like it. but
Exactly.
before it happened, I was a totally different person, and I was not fully embracing who I am. And now I do fully embrace who I am. And that's the way we're supposed to be.
Yes,
And to just address the idea of being a better person because of this connection to spirit. It's absolutely true, because God is next to you all the time. God is there to ask for help, and not in a way where you go to church and that's where you connect with God and you see the priest and that's how you connect with God. But right here, right now is God, you know?
yes,
And so that, and that God is there to support, protect, help, and develop you so that
yes,
God can witness through you what is that God created. So,
yes,
and how can you not at least try to be a better person with that knowledge, that
yes,
very
yes.
intense knowledge?
It is that hard, like to for us to ascend, like in that way, because there's so many things that we will not be able to understand if we haven't experienced like all that. So it's totally understanding, even like if we kind of like feel bad from time to time.
And that's what I really feel. I had this revelation a couple of years ago. I really do feel that that's what we're here to do. I really feel that
Yes,
we came here as almost as heroes to process pain. I wonder if pain is actually something beyond emotion and beyond personal experience, and rather some kind of energetic thing or chemical thing, and we are actually here to process it. And the more we're able to do that, the more we're willing to just be with the pain, process it, and allow it to ascend, the more maybe we raise the vibration of the planet. Maybe we bring the planet into the, level 2 civilization, which right now we're at level 0. Maybe that's the point. And that people who fail miserably are actually to be felt sorry for, because they came here to do the same thing that we came here to do, and they failed terribly. And they're probably not going to have another chance for a while after that, to really.
I believe so.
Right. So, I mean, I think we're here to suffer. We're here also to love and have joy and do all the whole gamut of the human experience. But I really think that suffering is a main part of why we're here. And to avoid it is just, you're not doing what you came here to do. So.
You know that I think for a couple of days, actually weeks, now that you mention pain, I was writing something about it, and it's just weird that you said that, because what I wrote was actually, don't let me not feel pain.
Interesting.
Yes, because I felt that through that, like I learned things, and without that, the impact of pain, I will be lost. Actually, that was kind of what I wrote.
Yeah, and I guess that goes along with the idea of, people say that you need pain in order to experience love. You need the both sides of the coin in order to experience each side of the coin. But I think that's a little simplistic. It's like, it doesn't exist for the other thing to exist. It exists on its own. It exists
Yes.
to be processed. It's part of the human condition. It's one half of the human, pain and love, the two. That's all there is, pain and love. And perhaps pain is love as well. But so to deny that other half is, not only will you not grow and learn, but you aren't being fully whole. You're not whole if you're not in that truth. And if you're not whole, how can you be fully open? And if you're not fully open, how can you experience spirit? And if you can't experience spirit, how can you be whole? So it's this circular.
It's like circular. Yeah, yeah. I believe that too.
Yeah. Well, Angela, this has been a very interesting, and I think really helpful conversation, because like I said in the beginning, I don't think this is unusual. I think I experience it too. And I'm not even a person who's surrounded by judgmental people,
Yeah.
and the people I'm surrounded with, even the ones who are not spiritual in the way that we are, they're open, but even it's hard to be fully and completely open with my beliefs with anybody but people who are on the same level, because it's hard for people to have these conversations. It's hard for people to really, if I shared what I just shared with you about my belief about pain and it being the reason we're here and that we came here for that, most people are like, okay, yeah, sure, great. I'm going to take off now.
Yeah, this
And
is super
that's
pessimistic.
and they think it sounds cuckoo. They think it sounds crazy,
Yeah.
and that's okay. That's all right. But it's unfortunate, because that makes it hard then to be fully authentic with everybody.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
I experienced that to a very small extent as well. And then I think all the way up the scale, people experience the struggle of being able to fully be in their beliefs. At least in this day and age, we're not hung and burned for our beliefs,
Yes.
although hopefully we're not heading back in that direction. I don't
Hopefully,
think
yes.
so, but I think love and light actually in this case is all there is, and
Yes.
it's going to prevail. But then you see things like Southern Methodists removing female leadership from churches and taking churches away from, people when they're led by women. And it makes you wonder where we're headed. But hopefully
Yes.
those people are just an old, a bygone era, and they will, just disappear into history as an embarrassment.
Hopefully, yes, I agree with you.
But so would you like to share any social media or anything like that for our listeners in case anybody wants to get in touch with you either for a reading or just to have a conversation or anything like that?
Yes, they can email me. The email that I use is ngp1227 at yahoo.com. I'm open like for questions and just sharing stories as well.
All right. Thank you so much, Angela, for sitting down with me.
Thank you. Thank you. It was great.
It
Thank you.
was. And to our listeners, thank you. And we love you.